Hey, we've teamed up with a company called Dreamworld to bring our anime merch store to the next level. Check us out at AnimeUproar.com for exclusive designs, including some brand new ones. That's AnimeUproar.com or click the link in the description. Hey, what is up everybody, it's Animac here for AnimeUproar, and today I will be breaking down the very latest developments in the 7 Deadly Sins story. Last week I didn't make a video because I didn't think that chapter 341 gave me enough material to go on for a full video, but with the release of chapter 342 we definitely have a lot to talk about. Also, we have some potentially huge news about the manga. Some news outlets are reporting that the 7 Deadly Sins manga will be ending with volume 41 of the story. Volume 41 is set to be released in May of this year, so if this claim is true, it means that as of the publication of this video, we only have about 4 or 5 chapters to go before the end of the entire series. But is this possible? Could the manga really be ending so soon? And if so, what kind of ending are we talking about? The brand new Chaos arc has seemingly just started, so does this mean that we're looking at a rushed and unsatisfying ending? Or is Nakaba Suzuki just trolling us again? I will talk about all of that and a lot more right here in this video. If you enjoyed the 7 Deadly Sins content on the channel and you want us to keep it going, please leave a like to let me know, it really helps. And if you happen to be new to the channel or you just didn't subscribe yet, please consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. If you really want to be notified the next time we upload another 7 Deadly Sins video and you don't want YouTube to bury our videos, you have to go through the trouble of clicking the notification bell and then selecting the option that says all. Finally, this video will of course contain 7 Deadly Sins manga spoilers. We are talking about the very latest in the story, so please proceed with caution, you have been warned. To quickly recap the events of chapter 341, it started off with Gowther explaining to the Sins why he thinks that Merlin never told them about her plan to resurrect Chaos. Throughout the story, each of the Sins had their own wish, and Merlin's wish was to revive Chaos and to resurrect Arthur as the King of Chaos. But the reason why Merlin didn't tell the Sins about her plan was because she didn't think that they would support or understand what she was trying to do. They would have told her that the power of Chaos is too dangerous and that she shouldn't be taking such big risks. And from everything we've seen so far, this is absolutely true. The power of Chaos is extremely dangerous and unstable. Just look at what Cath was able to achieve by ingesting just a fragment of Chaos. Some of the Sins, like King, feel that Merlin used them in order to get her wish, but Gowther defends Merlin, saying that she also saved the Sins many times, and she waited for all of their wishes to come true before finally going off to pursue her own wish. Gowther also emphasizes that he is not taking sides here. He considers all of the Sins his precious comrades. Nevertheless, Meliodas stresses that they cannot let the power of Chaos go unchecked. It is far too dangerous, and Merlin has to be held responsible for what she's done. Then, in the next moment, the Sins can sense some strange type of magic coming from the distance, from the very place where they had come from and where Merlin and Arthur are still located. This magic is of course the magic of Cath Palug, who, as we know from the previous chapter, wasn't actually defeated by Arthur. Instead, he was able to reconstruct himself, and in so doing he attained a new ultimate form. A form that I must say does look pretty damn cool, and it is much cooler than the previous Cath forms that we've seen so far. Back on the battlefield, Merlin is in the middle of fighting Cath. She is doing her best to keep Cath away from Arthur, because Cath's ultimate goal is of course to devour Arthur. Arthur pledges to defeat Cath and he tries to cut the beast down using Excalibur, but Cath cannot be defeated by being cut. Every time the monster is cut, it just regenerates its entire body. What's more, when Arthur proclaims that he is determined to protect the Kingdom of Camelot and its people, Cath reveals that Camelot has been reduced to rubble as a result of the latest holy war. Arthur is actually able to use the power of Chaos to somehow confirm that what Cath is saying is true. Chaos power somehow allows Arthur to see with his own eyes that Camelot has basically been pulverized. This is an interesting aspect of Chaos power that we haven't seen until now. For some reason, Chaos grants Arthur the ability to accurately see any place of his choosing, even from a massive distance. Merlin tells Arthur that he can always rebuild his kingdom, especially now that he possesses the power of Chaos. And thankfully, most of his people are safe. They managed to survive and they sought refuge in Leonis. Still, Arthur is devastated because he had promised the people of Camelot that he would restore the kingdom, but instead he allowed it to be destroyed. Cath uses Arthur's moment of weakness to attack him, and as she tries to protect Arthur, Merlin puts herself in harm's way. Just as she is about to take the full brunt of Cath's power, Meliodas suddenly appears and uses full counter to throw Cath's attack back at him. Cath is seemingly torn to pieces as a result of Meliodas' full counter. Along with Meliodas, all of the other remaining Sins and Elizabeth have returned to help Merlin and Arthur. Meliodas tells Merlin that she must accept responsibility for her actions by dedicating her life to protecting Arthur, and at the same time Meliodas says that the Sins bear some responsibility for forgiving Merlin's foolishness. So they must take responsibility for protecting her. Merlin is touched by this, and that is how chapter 341 ends, with the Sins reunited again and working together with Merlin to defeat the dastardly Cath Palug. But despite Meliodas' full counter, in chapter 342 we see that Cath Palug is able to just regenerate and quickly repair the physical damage that the full counter caused. Cath is getting annoyed with the Sins constantly getting in its way of devouring Arthur. King and Diane wonder whether Cath's ability to regenerate like this is the same type of immortality that Bon used to have. But Merlin answers that no, this is completely different. Thanks to the power of Chaos, Cath is now a being that transcends life and death itself. As his massive body regenerates, Cath gets all philosophical on Arthur. Cath asks why Arthur is upset that his kingdom was destroyed when that was inevitable anyway. If Camelot hadn't been destroyed now, it could have been destroyed later by someone else, or even by a meteor. Everyone and everything eventually dies. People, animals, mountains, lakes, and even gods. Everything dies, everything is destroyed eventually. The only thing that always remains constant is chaos. This is an interesting concept that Cath brings up. Nothing physical is permanent in this world. Everything ends eventually. As much as we try to preserve things as they are, as much as we try to organize and plan everything out perfectly, we will all share the same fate eventually. One could reasonably argue that chaos really is the only constant in our own world as well. Everything else is fleeting and impermanent. It's interesting because even though Cath's intentions are villainous, the philosophy that he is espousing reminds me a lot of Stoicism. Stoic philosophers believe that we have to accept that the world can be chaotic and that there are certain things that are out of our control. The Stoics teach us to accept the inevitable and just do our best with the things that we have control over while never stressing out over the things that we cannot control. Change is inevitable, death is inevitable, but that shouldn't be a reason to despair. Instead, that should remind us to always make the best out of every moment because nothing is guaranteed in this world. Of course, that is not what Cath is saying. Cath wants Arthur to despair, but I thought that it was interesting that this villain actually reminded me of Stoic philosophy, which I greatly appreciate. After the philosophical discussion, we get an epic 2-page spread that shows Cath Palug attacking the Sins. And I really have to praise the art on this page. It does a great job of portraying this fight between Cath and the Sins in just 2 pages. There is a lot of movement and action all happening at once, and I really have to praise Nakaba and all his assistants for this one. Ultimately, Merlin is able to use her incredible infinity magic to suspend Cath's time. He remains suspended in the air, motionless, and his wounds are not healing instantly as they had been earlier. Merlin says that Cath's body will remain suspended in this way for dozens of years or even a few centuries, although he will break free eventually. And Meliodas responds by saying that they'll cross that bridge when they get to it. Elizabeth assures the Sins that as long as they work together, they will all be fine, and they all go home happy. Next, we see images of Elizabeth and Meliodas finally getting married in Leonis, with King Bartra and the Holy Knights crying tears of joy upon seeing the 2 star-crossed lovers finally getting married. And yes, if you think that all of this is weird and happening way too fast, you're right, but hold on, we'll get to it. Unfortunately, many of Meliodas and Elizabeth's friends couldn't make it because they were busy doing other things. Elaine is pregnant and Bon had to stay by her side. King and Diane are in the fairy realm, Hawk and Gowther are doing their own thing, and Merlin and Arthur are busy rebuilding Camelot. Okay, I could understand some of the others not coming, and Bond's excuse because Elaine is pregnant is acceptable, because if she's about to give birth any day, he has to stay by her side. But under no circumstances would I believe that Hawk would miss Meliodas and Elizabeth's wedding. Absolutely not possible. I mean, does Hawk really look like the type of guy who would have better things to do? Not likely. Eventually, a lot of time goes by, and Bond dies of old age now that he is mortal again. And even Elizabeth is about to die for the last time, this time as an old lady with Meliodas by her side. The two of them reminisce about how it's been a happy 3,000 years despite all the challenges that they faced, but then, suddenly, a guard appears and Meliodas rushes out. Meliodas sees that Cath is finally back, and he begins to slaughter the Knights of Leonis. Cath mocks Meliodas because he is now the only one facing him. It's only been a few years and all his friends are either dead or gone. Meliodas is enraged and he fights against Cath, but Cath keeps mocking him, saying that if Meliodas had just let him kill everyone back then he wouldn't have to go through such a protracted period of pain and loss. Cath tries to convince Meliodas that he is alone and that everything is pointless because chaos is the only constant and eventually everyone disappears and nothing really matters. But Meliodas refuses to accept this. Remembering all his friends, he exclaims that their bonds will never go away. And in that moment, a shocked, sweaty Meliodas returns to the battlefield from the beginning of the chapter, where the Sins and Elizabeth are still there with him, they are still young, and Cath is there too, seemingly freed from Merlin's magic. So basically, it was all a prank, bro, but let's continue. Meliodas wonders if he had just experienced a powerful hallucination, or if it was real, but Arthur tells him that what Meliodas saw was just one of many possible futures. It was neither real nor a hallucination, just one potential outcome of the battle. At least that's how I understand it. Arthur declares that they must find a way to defeat Cath Palug once and for all. Cath says that it's futile because Arthur will inevitably be swallowed by him, and then Cath will become fully unified with chaos and swallow everything. And in that moment, Arthur appears to have some sort of epiphany. He says that he's figured it out. He's figured out a way to defeat Cath. And that is where the chapter ends, without an explanation about how exactly Arthur intends to defeat Cath, or what kind of breakthrough he just had. This ending of the chapter really left me wondering what Arthur meant when he said that he had found a way to defeat Cath. Since at the time Cath was talking about swallowing Arthur and everything else, does this mean that Arthur is planning to swallow Cath instead and take back all the chaos power that Cath took from him? This seems kind of silly, but with all the talk of devouring, my first thought was maybe Arthur is about to flip the script and have some Cath casserole. But the more likely explanation is that the crazy possible future that Meliodas experienced gave Arthur the idea to use the power of chaos itself to somehow seal Cath away. Perhaps Arthur will use chaos to send Cath into a different reality or into a different future. Or perhaps Arthur will use the power of chaos to banish Cath into another realm, a realm from which he will be incapable of harming anyone in Britannia. This could potentially tie into what I mentioned in the previous video about the realms being separated, just as the intro of the anime prophesied. Trapping Cath in a different realm could stop him from causing any more chaos here in Britannia. And of course, separating all the warring clans into separate realms could end the Holy Wars once and for all. Although this would also mean that all of our favorite characters who come from different clans would have to be separated as well, which would suck a lot. And this brings me to the ending of the 7 Deadly Sins. Could the news be true? Could the manga really be ending in just 4 or 5 chapters? And if so, how could it possibly end in a satisfying way? This Chaos arc is seemingly just getting started, and there are a ton of unsolved mysteries still lingering. So personally, I do not think that a satisfying ending in such a short period of time is even possible. Sure, they could potentially defeat Cath in that time and go live happily ever after, but that doesn't give us closure about the Supreme Deity. It doesn't give us closure about Escanor's sacrifice, and it certainly doesn't give us full closure about Merlin and why she did all the things that she had done. I mean, are we really going to stick to Merlin just being upset that she couldn't hook up with Meliodas, so she channeled all her romantic frustration into magical curiosity? And it was that curiosity alone which made her dedicate her life to resurrecting the power of chaos? If that ends up being the case, then Merlin's backstory is by far the worst and least compelling backstory out of all the sins. I certainly hope that we will still get more about Merlin's backstory and that we are going to get a better explanation about her true intentions. If we don't, I will be greatly disappointed, and let's face it, Cath Palug, as cool as he is now in his new form, does not feel like a final villain by any stretch of the imagination. The only way that a real ending is possible in the next few chapters is if we learn that the 7 Deadly Sins manga is ending only to make room for some sort of direct continuation. Some sort of 7 Deadly Sins Shippuden that will directly continue the story and that will finally answer all of the many unsolved mysteries in the series. I really don't see any other way to get a satisfying ending. Either we will need a lot more than 4 or 5 chapters, or we will need a direct continuation of the story, even if it is under another name. But please let me know what you guys think. Is the story really ending in just a few more chapters? And if so, what kind of ending could we possibly be getting? Can you see the ending being satisfying or good in any way? Or would it have to be extremely rushed and anticlimactic? Hit me up with your feedback down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and you want us to keep the 7 Deadly Sins content going, please leave a like to let me know, it really does help. And if you happen to be new to AnimeUproar, or if you just haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe and hit that notification bell to turn on all notifications. If you want to be notified and you don't want YouTube to bury our videos, you have to go through the trouble of clicking the bell and selecting the option that says all. You can also hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at AnimeUproar. I want to give a big thank you to all of our AnimeUproar patrons for supporting our work and making these videos possible. With all the constant problems on YouTube, patron support is more important than ever. Thank you guys so much. First and foremost, a special thank you to our The One tier patrons, the ones who rise above all other clans, including Ingrata, Alolanatum, The World, Steelers, The School Bus, Tyson Quirino, A Quiet Respect, and Pate Hefa. And I can't forget our Pro Hero tier patrons, including the one and only Gilgamesh, Nothing But a Fan, Jason Wilson, King Zeldris, Fididala Beat, Alpha Dio, Anatoly Kazatsky, Angel Cruz, Team Sparky 65, Cricket XP, Rohan Kapoor, Jessica Maloney, Emperor Otaku, Timothy E. Vargas, Jean Dark, Joe Stanton, JCC Waka, Very Gucci, and Jessica K. Lafont. If you enjoy our videos and you think that they provide value for you, consider supporting us on Patreon. Even a single $1 will give you access to our patron-exclusive Discord, and your name will appear in our videos along with these legendary people. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, see ya, Space Cowboys.